Well, good evening, visitors. Welcome to the Australian War Memorial's Last Post ceremony. My name is Richard Cruz, and joining us today from the Australian Army is Warrant Officer Class 2, Joanne Davey. We warmly welcome the family of Sapper Lyle John Ranger, whose story will be told shortly. We're honoured to acknowledge Mr. Paul Francis, founder and executive chairman of Humpty Dumpty Foundation. We welcome the veterans who have served, those that are still serving, and the families that support them. We acknowledge the members of RSL and Services Clubs Association, RSL Victoria and RSL Queensland, who are watching the broadcast of this ceremony across Australia. During this evening's ceremony, wreaths will be laid at the base of the Pool of Reflection by family and visitors to the memorial. Could I ask you to please stand and join in singing the National Anthem. With tonight's conditions, ladies and gentlemen, those that can be seated, you're welcome to sit down. The Australian War Memorial was the vision of Charles Bean, Australia's First World War official historian. Bean landed with the Australian troops on Gallipoli and stayed with them at the front through to the end of the war. The idea of this national memorial and museum came to him at Pozières, France, in the depths of the bloody fighting of 1916. Bean's idea was that this would be a place where families and friends could mourn loved ones buried in faraway places. It would also be a place that could help all Australians understand what these men and women had endured and what they had done for us. Bean's vision, to which we remain true, is best expressed as inscribed in the entrance to the memorial's galleries. Here is their spirit, in the heart of the land they loved. And here we guard the record which they themselves made. Tonight we'll read the story behind just one of those on the Roll of Honour, which lists the names of more than 102,000 men and women who have given their lives for us in war and operations over more than a century. But first we present a lament, Flowers of the Forest. Wreaths and floral tributes will now be laid at the base of the Pool of Reflection.
Today we remember and pay tribute to Sapper Lyle John Ranger. Lyle Ranger was born in 1890, one of 9 children of George and Sarah Ranger of Wallsend near Newcastle in New South Wales. In the years before the war, he attended Boolaroo Public School, paraded with the senior cadets at nearby Terralba, and worked as an apprentice tailor. Ranger enlisted in the Australian Imperial Force as soon as he was old enough to do so. Aged 17 and 11 months, he sought his parents' consent to enlist in the Army in May 1916. After carrying out his initial training at the Newcastle AIF camp, he was sent to Seymour in Victoria, where he spent several months training as a sapper for the newly formed mining battalion. In October 1916, Lyle embarked for the training camps of England with a reinforcement group for the Australian tunnelling companies. The tunnelling companies were formed in 1915 in response to the static conditions that characterised trench warfare on Gallipoli and the Western Front. While the infantry and artillery sought ways to break through the German lines above ground, engineers of the tunnelling companies dug underground saps and set explosive charges beneath the German trenches as a way of breaking the deadlock on the Western Front. Lyle embarked for France in January 1917 as a reinforcement for the 1st Australian Tunnelling Company, which was at that time secretly extending shafts for mines beneath a position known as Hill 60, south of Ypres in Belgium. This mine shaft and the nearby mine at the Caterpillar were 2 of 21 mines that British and Canadian tunnellers had secretly excavated beneath a mezzanine ridge in preparation for a major offensive effort which sought to break through the Ypres salient. The tunnellers spent most of their time underground in filthy, dark, waterlogged caverns with the ever-present risk of being buried in a tunnel collapse. Above ground, they were exposed to German artillery and mortar fire, making Hill 60 a bleak and miserable position to maintain. Given his pre-war training as a tailor, Lyle worked as a batman for one of the officers of the 1st Australian Tunnel Company. In this role, he would have kept his officer's uniform and kit clean and tidy, cooked meals, and acted as a runner. Just after midday on the 25th of April 1917, a massive explosion ripped through the officers' quarters occupied by the 1st Australian Tunnelling Company below Hill 60. It is not clear whether a German artillery shell landed on the position and caused the explosion, although there is some suggestion that a group of officers in the dugout were testing detonators for continuity while a 23-kilogram priming charge was being prepared for a 295-kilogram camouflage. Lyle was among the 10 men who were killed in the explosion. He was 18 years old. His body was buried at the railway dugout's burial ground at nearby Ypres. A simple epitaph penned by his mother appears on his headstone. He was loved by all. Lyle Ranger's name is listed on the Roll of Honour on my right, among almost 62,000 Australians who died while serving in the First World War. This is but one of the many stories of service and sacrifice told here at the Australian War Memorial. We now remember Sapper Lyle Ranger, who gave his life for us, for our freedoms, and in the hope of a better world.
Please stand for the reading of the ode and the sounding of the last post.
They shall grow not old as we that are left grow old. Age shall not weary them, nor the years condemn. At the going down of the sun and in the morning, we will remember them.
We will remember them.
Lest we forget.
Lest we forget. We leave you this evening with the words of the memorial's founder, Charles Bean. Many a man lying out there at Pozières or in the low scrub at Gallipoli with his poor, tired senses barely working through the fever of his brain has thought in his last moments, well, it's over. But in Australia, they will be proud of this. Ladies and gentlemen, girls and boys, that concludes this evening's last post ceremony. We thank you for visiting the Australian War Memorial and wish you all a very good evening. Thank you.